Pleasure to be here. So I'm Jonas, and I am one of the co-founders of Furhat Robotics. So Furhat is... Thanks. Furhat is a robotics company founded 3 years ago here at KTH, and we're still located at KTH. And we build social robots. I'm, as I said, one of the co-founders, and also have the title Director of Embodied Engineering. I'm quite happy with the title. I came up with it myself. And I'm also a professor here at in the School of Computer Science. I'm going to talk today about a bit about what Furhat is, but also about the sort of potential, why it might be a good idea to build robots that have a personality and that are able to engage in social interaction with humans. So let's actually start with a little movie here. Let's see.
Hello, computer.
Just use the keyboard.
The keyboard. How quaint.
All right. So I'm from speech technology, or this is sort of my area, and we've always been saying that in 5 years we're going to be able to talk to a computer, and it's going to be everywhere. And it's then 5 years more comes along, and nothing happens, and all of a sudden it happened, right? So we're right now in the golden age of speech technology. It's literally everywhere, and this is a selling point of the companies, and it's not something that you just keep waiting for, and it's actually reaching the level of human, or past the level of human performance, and yeah, so it's really working well, and we have physical devices now being developed that are based on speech as the main form of communication, which is fantastic. However, these devices are excellent for short interactions, and if you just want to request a song, which is basically what probably 99% of what these devices are used for, is requesting songs. But the interaction itself resembles actually a lot a ping pong match, and something that you would do with an intercom like this. So you wouldn't have any long engaging discussions. So this means that if you want users to actually be engaged in, if you were to do things like tutoring, or even therapy, or getting education, or a whole range of possible applications that you can actually make an impact on people, then of course this mode of interaction wouldn't be enough. And basically what is missing, of course, is the personality, or even the lack of a face in some form. So basically the face is something that defines a lot of the personality, of course, as we know. So it might make a lot of sense to give the robot some kind of face, and this is just a sample of what different robots people have come up with. And I mean, it's not arbitrary, of course. It's not just because we want it to look like a human, because it's from science fiction, but we also, I mean, it's about the way we react to things and to humans. It's very much rooted in our brains, that when we see a face, we can't help. We can't decide that we don't want to process it, basically. I mean, we see a face and it goes straight to our most sort of primal parts of our brain. So that makes it also very powerful as an interface. So basically we can say that this whole area of social robotics, personality is sort of the user experience that defines it. So, I mean, we can look at the paradigm of that humans have always been using tools, and in some ways the first robots sort of industrial robots can also be thought of as tools, but there is at some point it crosses over and becomes a social entity, and then we stop thinking about it as a tool. And the reason then for having this is, as I said, that there are numerous levels of engagement that come from the fact that the robot or the entity that we interact with has some kind of personality and a face. And there have been several studies that show this quite clearly. So for example, if you have someone trying to solve a puzzle and getting instructions either by text or by even by a moving avatar or a character on the screen, they won't perform as well as if they get exactly the same instructions given by a physical robot. So these are some very clear studies, and we've done similar experiments ourselves in the research department with language learning, where we have a robot trying to teach the user a second language, that they comparing different conditions, we again see that the robot is the most effective means because it forms a deeper sort of connection, and the users are more engaged with the robot. So these are some of the reasons why we believe it's a good thing to build robots with personalities. So just to look at what robots are out there, you already saw a slide with a lot of robots with faces, basically, and this is sort of what can be, what is on the market today. And of course, this looks a bit like a sales slide, which I got it from the CEO today. So it's, of course, this is our this is our robot up there. But you see a lot of, I mean, you have Pepper, which is like the Japanese seen in, for example, in public service and in shops everywhere now in Japan, and you have some other devices that are geared towards the home market, like the Jibo, which hasn't been released, and so on. So actually, if you look at what these are sort of announced, if you look at what's actually shipping, it's not as many. But down here you have these home assistants, Google Home and Alexa, which are of course shipping by millions. But again, they lack some of the modes of interaction that we think of as providing personality. So yeah, this is more of the same, but looking at the price span, so they go all the way from like $100 up to fairly expensive stuff. But again, if you look at the ones that are actually on the market, it's very little in the middle, sort of. So either they're geared towards basically towards researchers and players that can that clearly see the value in this and want to develop their services on top of this. And on the consumer side, it's fairly scarce at the moment in terms of social robotics. But this is of course bound to change, because all of the researchers and the high-tech companies that develop applications for these robots have something in mind, of course. So it's going to be it's going to reach the consumer level, but it's going to be enter other markets like public service, which is what we're seeing now a lot in Japan. So finally, a few words about what we're actually doing at Furhat. So we're trying to position Furhat. A few words about the actual hardware, since this is a hardware meeting. Unfortunately, I didn't bring one, but we're using facial animation and projected light. So we have a little projector sitting inside the robot, and it's projecting an animated face. And then we have sort of the main unit that contains a fairly powerful PC that runs all the animation software and also the speech signal processing and speech recognition. So basically it's self-contained, so you can do spoken interaction directly with this device. And it's also very flexible because you can change the mask and you can change the actual image that you're projecting onto it. So it can literally take on different personalities, which also makes it unique, I would say, in the robotics lineup that we see. So it contains a lot of these modules. I won't go into any details, but it's able to track users' faces. We're using a lot of technology that's come out fairly recently, but it's so we're not, of course, building all of these technologies ourselves, but we're putting it together. Speech recognition, it's able to connect to touch screens, and it's keeps track of several users, so it builds a model of sort of the situation. So it can handle multi-party interactions, basically, which you will see later in the video. It does spoken dialogue management with multiple users, handling things like joint attention, trying to excuse me, keep track of who is looking where. If there are two users talking to the system and one of the users is talking to the other user, it's gonna notice that that user is not turning the head towards the robot but towards the other user, so it's not gonna pay as much attention. And speech synthesis, all sorts of gestures and expressions in the face and so on. So these are some of the verticals that Furhat is looking at now. So this is sort of the product that is being sold actually as we speak, but it's also being developed quite heavily on this stereo. So there's the actual hardware, and there is a software layer called Furhat OS that contains all of the necessary boilerplate basically to build your own applications, and then there is the Furhat Studio and different sort of the development environment where you where you can build your own human-robot interaction scripts or skills, as we call them. And this is then intended to work across a whole range of different application areas. So this is quite a challenge. I mean, we were given a lot of advice that it's good to choose one and sort of try to be strong in that vertical, but we said, no, let's do them all, and let's build a platform that people can use to actually realize social robotics, because it's relevant to so many different areas. And we have some. So basically, the idea is that we have collaborations in all of these. So we don't try to do everything ourselves, but we collaborate with strong players in all these markets, and try to build applications then that and proof of concepts that work. So to round off, here is Furhat in action. This was done at the Technical Museum in Stockholm a few years ago. So Furhat is interacting with visitors at the museum, and they interact two at a time, and they play a game together. So you will see how this works.
Jag heter Furhat. Och vad heter du?
Jag heter Ruba.
Jag heter Björn.
Trevligt att träffas. Om jag förstår spelet rätt så ska vi sortera de här planeterna efter deras storlek. Den minsta här och den största här borta. Ni får gärna diskutera lösningen med varandra, men också fråga mig vad jag tror. Skulle ni vilja hjälpa mig med det? Vad tror du?
Jag vet inte.
Det här var ganska svårt. Jag känner mig osäker. De första olympiska spelen hölls väl i Grekland?
Precis, ser du?
Ja. Det långsammaste här och det snabbaste här borta. Tryck på knappen om ni vill se lösningen. Vi fick 2 rätt. Vi kanske kan göra bättre ifrån oss nästa gång. Vi fick alla rätt. Det är ju fantastiskt.
Tack, Fara.
All right. So that's one of the examples where you hopefully can see the sort of the level of engagement that you can get with this type of device. That's all for me, actually. 1 minute left. I don't know if that's supposed to include questions or no. Okay. So we're looking for always looking for people that are talented and interested. So thank you for your attention and.